Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my co-host, good friend, Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you?
Awesome. It feels like we've barely been apart, Mal.
It does, yes. You will be surprised, listeners, and sincere apologies for the fact that we are recording this on a Thursday when we normally get it done on a Monday, but for various reasons, including me being away, sorry, and also us being together all day yesterday, but just still not quite getting the time to be able to work it through. We are here very bright and early, 6:30 on Thursday morning, but we have lots to discuss. So let us crack into our property news. All right, Matt. So first up, we've got some exciting AI acquisition news from our old friends at Fixflo. For those that don't know, Fixflo is a maintenance app, been around for a long time. Rajiv started it probably, goodness, about 20 odd years ago now, something like that maybe.
It's actually only 12.
Is it really?
Only about 12 years ago. I remember them having the 10-year anniversary when they had their office down in Elephant and Castle.
Yeah.
And maybe slightly longer now, but given that Raj has been out that business for a bit. But you're absolutely right. It's Rajiv, for those that don't know it, as Mal started and I interrupted rudely, was Rajiv's view of it was to aim to be the the Uber of maintenance. And it had a very simplistic but very powerful tile image based reporting mechanism for tenants to report their maintenance faults, actually just before smartphones were launching. So you'd be able to log on and click on I can smell gas, and then it would warn you that actually you should be calling someone if you could smell gas. But if it was something less serious, to be able to report that issue through. And I think the real success of it was these integrations with all the CRM. So it would drop it straight into your CRM and pass on to your maintenance workflow. Raji subsequently sold Fixflo to a massive German CRM called Arian, and they powered on from there. And Arian has now acquired Help Me Fix, which, Mal, have you come across Help Me Fix, or do you want some detail on that?
Only very in passing, really. So they're very new. I've developed this sort of AI method of describing and writing and taking photos and making sure that the full description of the maintenance issue is basically AI and transmitted. So it's very nascent, but something that in terms of the AI side. But I think it seems like quite a smart acquisition for Fixflo. I'm sure a lot of users, listeners out there who use Fixflo have done over the years. It's one that I still come across as being really prevalent in many agencies. And it's just good to see that some of the more, it's weird to think of them like the old bricks and clicks businesses are now like acquiring the AI businesses when they themselves used to be the kind of newcomers. But this I think is where we are in it.
I think what's really powerful on this one, and just comes back to what we've talked about and again on this show, is that Help Me Fix and Fixflo are very similar businesses, but Fixflo is the reporting of it. And Etan Bazil, who started Help Me Fix, was actually an engineer himself. He was out on the tools. And then what happens a lot of the time in maintenance is you have people who work on gas engineers who are used to humping boilers around and lugging them up on walls and having to do that. And as they get older, and you and I know this, your joints start to go, your calves start to pop, you can't quite do that heavy lifting. Eton started as a way of saying, actually, most of the time on a call out for maintenance, you don't actually need to attend sites. You can diagnose it over the phone, but you need to be asking the right questions. And a lot of property managers are very skilled on that. But what the engineers can do is talk you through more. Oh, I know that make of Bosch. You need to be doing this to repressurize the boiler, or you need to check this particular thing. So what Help Me Fix is actually built up is not just the tenant reporting data that Fixflo have got, but they've actually got all that engineer fixing and resolving data.
Yeah.
So their AI has actually got a different set of data that they're being trained on, that now Fixflo have obviously seen the value in that data set to really gear that AI up. Yes, it's new, but I think it's been going for about 5 years now. So there's a wealth of training data in there to really help power that AI through. And it's data's the new oil, isn't it?
100%. And like I said, I think the AI side of this, as you say, is new. But yes, the reservoir of data, and particularly the reservoir of data they're going to be able to train from Fixflo as well, I think is going to be huge, significant. It's going to make it a really powerful engine and keep it ahead of many others that are also competing in the same field. But well done them. Really good and interesting story to kick us off with. Next story, I wanted to drop in a little bit towards the rebranding side of things, and particularly focusing on the story of KFH. So Lohman's London business, or core London business, is KFH, which I think has got 60 odd branches. But it seems that Lohman are starting to to essentially bring these brands together. So Draker is one of their brands that they've got a 3-brancher in London and is now going to be co-branded with KFH with a view to essentially bringing the KFH brand as the core one going forwards. And it seems like that's going to be repeated across their other London brands. I've found this really interesting. I think it's really interesting contrast with what On the Market and Homes.com CoStar have done, where they've actually continued with the On the Market name as a portal and advertised significantly that particular brand. And I think they're now in a little bit of a holding pattern where they don't really know when to go hard at the Homes.com rebrand. KFH here or Lomond here have decided very quickly that actually this is what they're going to do. And I think that will play through all of their London brands. And I think it's smart. I think it's sensible. I'll go back to Zoopla days when we acquired all those different businesses like Think Property and Hot Property and Property Finder and all that sort of stuff. And we rebranded that really quickly. And then within 6 months, those brands disappeared. We had Think Property powered by Zoopla, and then it just disappeared into the Zoopla traffic. And I think you've just got to bite that bullet. And I think it does play into now that CoStar have acquired Domain, which is the number 2 in Australia, that actually how are they going to manage that? Are they going to learn the lessons from On the Market over here in the UK and actually rebrand Domain really quickly? Yes, they will lose a lot of brand equity by doing so. But as here, I think you've just got to go and say the presence, the relationships with the agents, those are the most important things. And then having the Homes.com brand across the world is going to, in the medium to long term, going to suit you better. Yeah, I think it's just a really interesting kind of concept.
Where do you stand on the co-branding? Because obviously Draker's KFH, they're doing that co-branding at the moment, which I guess is helping them build that knowledge of the local area, especially around Sloane Square, where one of Draker's offices is a very flash glass looking office, which you expect because Tim Hassel's ex-Foxtons like myself, and we love that sort of look. Is it a period of time where you co-brand? Cart Jonas, I remember, bought Sullivan Thomas, Boylo's, Bradshaw's, and they were sending landlord statements out with both brands on it. Very slick and looked great, but made it clear that this was a move. Does that work?
So I think what you do is you do 6 months, as KFH is doing here. You do 6 months, get people acclimatized and understanding that there is an association, and then you just bite the bullet. I think that the longer you leave it as co-branding, the more expense you've got as well. You're getting those economies of scale of being able to just have the one brand. But yes, there is obviously a cost to this, a short-term cost. Yes, as you say, you and your ex-Foxtons mafia, is that what we call you?
You can do that, yeah.
And your love of bling, that lends itself to some fancy offices. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm certain that whatever the highest bar that is within the Lomond family stable of brands is going to be where they all end up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it changing its brand in the next sort of 6 months to a year for sure.
Yeah. Well, we've seen that, and just remaining on Lomond for a moment, but they have those regional hub mega brands, don't they? So it's Mars and Bars being acquired, and they're having various new brands tucked into that. You got Brandvaughan down on the South Coast Charters. Motors, I think, I can't remember what they're up to now, 13 or 14 big regional brands. DJ Alexander took over everything north of the wall and rebranded all those. So the acquisitions do tend to. It'd be just interesting to see when something like Chase Evans gets pulled under that London brand. That's fascinating to watch because I wasn't really close to this last time all the building societies were doing a similar sort of exercise.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because you go back to Countrywide, and again, we're digressing slightly. This is slightly on topic. When you look at Countrywide, they had so much goodwill, brand equity on their balance sheet, that when it came to, they'd acquire these businesses for millions and millions. And part of it was acquiring these brands in their local areas. So they actually didn't touch most of them. They would leave Fulfords down in the southwest and so on. And alongside Gascoigne Peas, I remember there was Gascoigne Peas and Taylors and all these that were just all together on the high street. And I think their strategy was if somebody gets out 3 agents on the market appraisal, then 2 of them will be a Countrywide, and that's a win for us. But there was also the flip side of that, which is that actually one of your brands is losing all the time, and that costs you money too. So I think there is a contrast here, and I think that's a really interesting contrast where actually the brand equity that Lomond has been acquiring with all these different brands, they seem willing to let that go for the bigger prize of economies of scale and the ability to actually slim down their physical presences in various locations with a view to expanding some of their other offerings elsewhere.
So very different to the corporate world. We've got some interesting stuff going on in the self-employed agency world as well.
Yeah, and look, and again, fascinating to see that eXp have broken through the 800 agent is how they've defined it. And I was trying to work out whether there was 800 branches or 800
Mm.
actual agency.
Especially with the changes with MRE coming into the fold, as you know, if there's
Right.
five within that branch, do they count towards the agent?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think one of the classics, yeah, which number is actually the real number, but at the same time, still an impressive result. You can't argue with the fact that it's got to this point already, clearly the most dominant self-employed model out there and growing significantly. So, yeah, it now has this, I think it's called associate membership, where essentially as a settled bricks and mortar estate agency, you can now apply to become badged as eXp to get access to many of their economies of scale, particularly, I think, to get access to for just £150, you can actually get all of your Rightmove and Zoopla and on the market fees paid. And this, I think, is one of the kind of really interesting driving factors for a lot of agents. Again, I've been out talking to agents across the country. Many of them have been approached by eXp or other members of eXp, because remember, if an eXp member recruits another eXp member who then becomes successful, then they get a cut of the revenue. So there is an incentive, a baked-in incentive for the missionaries of eXp to go out into the darkness and bring people into the light. So I think that way of seeding the markets, the fact that there is these huge incentives where the average Rightmove fee is 1,500, 200 to 2,000, or you can get it for 150 quid with EXP, definitely skews, I think, decision making. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I'm not sure what you think.
I always go back to like when I was sort of used to train people, and you're looking at just those different structures of the businesses. You've got the corporates, you've got the independents, the franchisees, and just seeing that growth for the self-employed market. It's fascinating to watch. When I was over in Australia, I was also trying to explain that sort of our structure, because over there 50% franchise and 50% independents, and the big strong corporates are really more franchises having this other option. And that I still sometimes struggle when we're talking to self-employed, because they get the bad rep from people who almost use it as the gig culture. So it's I'm doing one job and I'm playing alongside with this. But we've seen different models within the self-employed, with Keller Williams having their centralized hubs. And okay, maybe those marketing hubs in Keller Williams isn't a great one to use as an example at the moment. But then just this week, Harding Green's made the announcement that Rob Musgrove's jumped out of corporate life and moved over from Chesterton's into that running the centralized call center. So that'll be great to watch. Rob's a very good guy, smooth operator, knows what he's doing. So seeing how he brings that into another self-employed model companies.
Yeah, but and again, yeah, the explosion of them is what Rob, one of your Foxton's Mafia as well.
Yeah, of course he is. That's why he brought it up, wasn't it? It's,
Absolutely 100%. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there are an interesting, there's little divergences now. And I think, again, that's a sign of healthiness within any kind of subsector of any economy. So yeah, you've got people like Movely and you've got Harding Green, you've got Movely who are dealing with the very top end, kind of targeting the sort of Savills end of the market. You've got Harding Green very much localized around the London area. You've got all these EXPs out and about as well. So I do think that this is a sign of choice, of healthiness for agents who want to make decisions about where they want to go, as well as for consumers as well, for them being able to actually pick somebody who is that they probably know from their local area, who is willing to put themselves on the for sale boards. And we've got some great examples: Katie Poor, Simon Bradbury, those guys, and who are making a real.
because we can never pin down where you are, Mal. When you're saying around where I am, is that in the yeah, yeah. That explains that fantastic tan that you've got.
I
I've used
wish.
fantastic 3 times now. You can tell it's early on a Thursday morning.
Yes, this is very early. We have come to the end of our property news. So we're going to dive deep into our AI and tech news. Okay, we're going to start with the news that Tropic's Claude has been piloting Claude for Chrome. So this is essentially a plugin for your Chrome browser. And you can now get Claude, one of the AI large language models, which is a really good one, to be part of that. And then you can use it to interrogate the websites that you are on. So the example that I often use, because I use it quite a lot, is if you go into an estate agent website and you want to know what the telephone number is, or you want to know like how many branches they've got, then you, instead of having to click through all these different pages, you can just basically ask Claude or ask any of the AIs. So yeah, this is another kind of big step forward, and it heralds the kind of next generation of how people are going to be using AIs, right?
That's it. And it ties in quite interestingly with the latest story as well, which is the whole Google being broken up story, doesn't it? Because this is the first one that's gone directly within Chrome. And we'll come back to the Google breakup or not breakup based on the news at the moment. But we've talked about these AI browsers being the next iteration and where things are going. And the sort of use case I've talked about is the fact that you could be able to log into your CRM and then log into your emails and let the browser do the hard work between the two, whether that's updating notes in your CRM based on emails coming in, or you know, starting tasks off from things that are going on in the CRM. But the sort of basic premise of all of these is you can ask questions of the tabs that are open, get it to summarize the information that's being pulled through. And I know I sat with you regularly, there's hundreds of tabs at the top, but it's not just us talking with Sarah from ASAP on Monday, and she's kept apologizing for how many tabs were open, but it's just the way we work, right? You're doing something, I often press control and clicking on a link so it opens in a new tab, and then you forget which tab. And if you're using things like HubSpot, where it doesn't readily tell you at the top which tab you're looking at, it's very difficult to work out where that information's disappeared into that ether of
Yeah.
tabs ultimately. But this
Yeah.
is just Claude's out the box. And people, you've got Claude, which is the large language model for people like you and I, and then there's Claude Code, where it's very much the agentic coding that's the term that's replacing vibe coding. And a lot of people are using Claude Code now to actually do the day-to-day tasks. And what this allows you to do is within Chrome, not having to download a new Perplexity comment or Dear, so the one you're used to dealing with, you can be directly in the browser, and you can view pages, but you can get it to view pages, click, fill forms in for you. And a lot of those actions that you do spend time on, you'll be able to just type a couple of sentences and set it off doing the task for you within that browser. So it'll be interesting to see how that runs. I've not actually got my hands on Perplexity Comet yet, but I was talking to someone yesterday who's revolutionized what they're thinking about.
Yeah. I decided, like you, I registered for it, I don't know, weeks ago, and then still waiting for it to come through. But Dia, which is the one, as you say, that I use, and we talked about a number of times, I have found that so powerful. I'm obviously going to play around with Claude as well, just to see what the kind of comparisons are. It will only be a matter of time, possibly days, weeks, until OpenAI launches ChatGPT's browser as well. And as you say, now that Google is retaining hold of Chrome, there was a court case over in the States where it may have been forced to sell it off, essentially, but now that's not the case. So now Google's retaining Chrome, then that means that everybody can now just get on with their strategies and can go, okay, we now need to compete, because there is a real risk to Chrome, probably for the first time since it came along, that actually it may be superseded by some other browsers that are coming out. So,
exactly.
Yes, watch this space. Plenty of stuff happening, but do go and play around with it if you can, because it's really important.
It's probably worth just to wrap up there, is the Google situation over in the States was an antitrust trial that had been brought against them, and as the case had worked its way through the system, there was looking at putting pressure or even a ruling that Google would have to sell Chrome off. And so there's actually, without going too nerds, there's Google Chrome that we all use, which is actually direct from Google, but they actually have a Chromium, which is an open source version of Chrome that lets anybody come along and fork it and start developing it. And a lot of Perplexity Comet is actually using that. But the antitrust trial has not gone as far as saying Google needs to break up and sell Chrome, because there's a lot of people bouncing around getting ready to buy it, wasn't there? I think Sam Altman had said he was going to put it, Perplexity were going to buy it, Sam Altman from OpenAI, I think even either Musk or Meta were going to jump in there. But the ruling has said some of the things that you and I probably don't even realize is that there's some of the exclusive search deals that Google has with people like Apple, where it is the default search provider on every new Apple device. Some of those deals are going to have to come to an end, which then questions, will it weaken Google's dominance in terms of default search contracts? But you got to ask questions with Google's search referrals 60% down. Has that already been weakened via the evolution we're going through?
Yeah, no, 100%. You used the word fork there and started talking about your techie stuff, didn't you? What was
That's all right. Sorry, I'll have another coffee and calm down.
No worries. All right, next story we've got about the top Gen AI apps and products from Andreessen Horowitz, who are a big investment firm over in the States, over in Silicon Valley, who invested in many of these. But it's just really interesting. And again, we were talking just offline about how we're starting to get a little bit settled, aren't we? So some of these new consumer and other apps that are coming into play, whether that's on mobile or web, are starting to persist on these lists rather than brand new ones coming in and taking the top spot and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think this is now starting to build into a really settled ecosystem, isn't it?
That's it. It's really stabilized. I think things to call out, as you'd expect, maybe you wouldn't expect, but ChatGPT is firmly number one. It has stabilized, so this gets produced every 6 months. So back in March, ChatGPT remains number one and stays there firmly. There's not that many new ones that pop into the list, but what is interesting is Google have got four of the biggest apps in there, and just the Google usage as well in terms of AI traffic. There's a little chart in it that we can share later on, but just in terms of Google's AI property traffic, Gemini is absolute rocketed. So in May 2025, it was around about 300 million. And it's now shot up to nearly 700. So I think everything that they're releasing, and there seems to be 4 or 5 new features coming out every week. I know
Yeah.
we this isn't Gemini either, but we talked about last week Nano Banana as both one of our key stories and also our tool of the week. And that got released with a really catchy new product title, didn't it? We'll go on. Have you got
Oh,
it to
it's
hand there, Mal?
really boring. I can't even
Gemini
say it.
2.5 flash image. I prefer Nano Banana. Let's stick with that. But this
Right.
is the one as a recap that was released in stealth mode with a little interesting title for it as Nano Banana. It's very much an AI Photoshop. So you can take a picture of Mal, take a picture of a t-shirt that's not bright orange, and it will update it. Or I shared on LinkedIn, there's a photo of a lady stood looking away from camera, and the prompt had been make the lady look at the camera, and that was it. It's like a phenomenal change, phenomenal picture. There was a word of warning that if you try to ask it to make too many changes, so like 13 or 14 changes in one go, it's lost its way. So it's an iterative thing, but I think you do that with Photoshop as well, don't you? You don't try change everything in a wanna. And so Google have been making those changes, dropping those. So now 4 of the biggest apps in this Horowitz report are all from Google. And I think for me, and we talked about it with the Pixel 10 launch the other week, they're really becoming the big player in the AI app space, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that they are absolutely the ones to watch. I think with ChatGPT 5's launching, been a bit of a damp squib. The next Gemini 2.5 Pro is amazing, and like when 3 comes out, which again could be pretty soon, I imagine it will steal a march technically on ChatGPT 5 as well. And obviously, it's got the distribution network, right? It's got the distribution network because we've all got a Google product buried somewhere on our devices, and it's also got the money because it's got an ad business that just throws cash off like it's going out of fashion. So yeah, I do think that it's, if I was sitting in ChatGPT's seat, Sam Altman, I would be sweating a little bit that Google is just starting to build.
Coming for you.
Yeah, exactly. I also interesting just on these as well to see where Grok is, because again, people may remember we spoke about Elon Musk's tantrum that he wasn't allowed to, that he thought Apple was basically downgrading anybody apart from OpenAI's ChatGPT so that nobody else could ever be number one on the App Store. So he's going to be really annoyed that on the Gen AI mobile apps from Andreessen Horowitz, he's 23rd. So he's going to have a little fit about them and blame them for the fact that which has described itself as Mecha Hitler is not finding more people to download it. Strange.
No, and it's got DeepSeek, Perplexity, and Copilot all sat above it in the rankings, hasn't it? I feel a bit like a Top of the Pops type presenter, Dave Lee Travis or something, going through that list. We should have got some funky music in the background.
It's only a very niche number of people listening to this thing. Actually, probably not. Now, listen, if you do know Dave Lee Travis,
anyone who's listening to us, Mal, is going to still know who Dave Lee Travis is.
Yeah, you're in the right place. Welcome. Anybody who does will share the AI version. So you can
we'll move on to the old grey whistle test now and really isolate ourselves.
Damn. All right. So just finally on our tech news, just wanted to touch on some good news from essentially how AI is helping change health. Now, one of the things, and perhaps some of the cynics will look at this and go, AI is always promising some health benefits just so that everybody can go off and do what they really want to do. But actually, there's a new stethoscope that the doctors have developed, an AI stethoscope that can detect major heart conditions in 15 seconds, 15. Now, essentially, this is the first time since 1816 that the stethoscope has been changed. All right. Such a revolutionary thing at the time, 200 years later. We have finally found a different way of doing it. But yeah, this is huge because it's really going to change, and it's relatively cost effective, relatively cheap as well. Does the whole kind of rapid ECG tests of heart rates and things like that straight off the bat. So yeah, I think we spend a lot of time critiquing a lot of what AI is doing and how people are playing it and all that sort of stuff. But I do think that there are genuine, strong benefits that are starting to come through of all of this activity. And I think it's just going to be, really good, particularly for old people like us, eh, man?
That's absolutely that. We want to be monitoring. The smartwatches keep a track on some things, don't they? But if whenever and I know I said, I maybe said to you, but I went for an appointment at King's recently, which is just at the top of my street. And inside there, they had a number of signs up saying we are doing AI trials and we are bringing in this stuff. There was actually, and I digress slightly, but another one that we had on our show notes was Kyla Scanlon, who's like an economic TikToker, had done a survey of workers' attitudes towards AI adoption. And while estate agents specifically, 48% felt AI increased the workload, and also 0% had complete trust in their employers using AI for good. Health was at the opposite end of the spectrum, and everyone was keen on it. There was no detractors, and a lot of people seeing the benefits. I think that's because health are the ones who've been adopting machine learning and AI well before it became the mainstream like we're getting now.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, so it's all the coding and all this kind of like the stuff that gets a lot of noise in the background. There's been a lot of kind of AlphaFold from Google has been discovering proteins and things like that that just are way too complex for the human brain to work out. So yeah, this I think is going to be a really rich area of improvement. And it also goes down to some of the mental health benefits as well, which also have a negative side too, but companionship and things, again, for kind of people who can just chat into their AI with care. I think there are some upsides to that as well, where that kind of loneliness and things like that, where people don't get visited by relatives and things like that, they can actually have some companionship in later life as well. So yeah, again, stuff for us to watch, Matt, as we move through the next couple of years.
Exactly. Have you already updated your ChatGPT 5 settings to be the personality that you need to interact with? I assume you have.
Indeed, yes. So I've gone for morose and cynical. That's pretty much the
what you're talking to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. It's the best conversations I have most days. Anyway, we will move on this week to our tool of the week. Now, this one I'm insanely excited about because I'm ridiculously sad. But Manus, regular listeners will remember Manus AI. This is a Chinese agentic AI, so it does stuff for you. It's really been leading the charge a bit. ChatGPT's agent came out in end of July, and Manus has basically been rolling with its agentic one since the beginning of the year. So now it's brought out Manus Mail. Manus Mail, MAIL. Basically, what you do is you just forward any of your emails to a unique Manus email address, and it will basically do the emails for you. Right, didn't say. You can then trigger it. You can train it on how you want to respond to certain emails and all this sort of stuff. But it's just such a really interesting use case. It is a time saver. You will work out over time how best to deploy this and which emails are right for it and which ones aren't. But yeah, it helps me to get through my inbox at a much steadier rate than has been possible, particularly as I've come back from holiday recently. So yeah, Manus Mail is something that I think is well worth a look right now. And I know from kind of feedback from listeners that the stuff we did about Manus slides went down very well. So yeah, if you've got Manus as a result of that, then also have a look at Manus Mail because or Mail Manus because it's really cool.
Yeah, Manus is, I seem to recommend it to someone almost every day. And I previously was using Fixer, Fxyer, for my emails, which does great responses and offers different solutions and sticks them all in your drafts ready to go. But just the fact that Manus got all that more context and not just what's going through your emails really makes it powerful.
Super strong. Okay, that is it for this week. Thank you everybody so much for listening in, and we will be back much earlier next week at our usual time, and we're actually looking on through the autumn and into the winter and maybe having just a settled spot on a Monday where we can actually get this done. So
believe it when I see it.
Yeah, true. Next Thursday morning, Matt, are you there? 6 o'clock. Okay, but so yes, we will try our best, guys, and thank you so much for bearing with us and for listening in. Matt, thanks so much for your insights this week. Really good to see you.
Likewise, and we got through almost a whole episode without me mentioning Grimsby Town beating Man United.
We did almost the entire episode until now. So no doubts the ident for this particular episode will have some.
I'll have a Harry Haddock under my arm or something.
Exactly right. All right, mate. Great to see you. Thanks again, everybody, for listening in. We will catch up with you again next week. See you then. All the best. Take care.
Have a great week, everyone.
Cheers.